Group C sports car racing was a golden age for motorsport. Some of the greatest racing cars ever built were created for the class and live on with an almost mythical status. But not all Group C machines were so lucky. Some were too unsuccessful to be worth remembering, others were remembered but for less flattering reasons. Toyota had been a minor player in European sports car racing through the majority of this much-loved era, but a rules change in 1991 forced a major shake-up of the competition. Would this be Toyota's chance to finally break records? The cars Toyota used through the 1980s were hit or miss. Mostly missed, to be honest. Across the better part of a decade, they managed 2 wins in the All Japan Sports Prototype Championship, not 2 championship wins, 2 single races. They were competing against the formidable Porsche 956 and 962s for a good chunk of that, but they also lost fights to home rival Nissan regularly. They found a decent number of podiums though, they weren't totally anonymous. European competition though was even less kind to the Toyotas, with the firm making very little impact, only really serving to bulk out the field. Group C sports car racing in Europe, and thanks to regulatory overlap in North America and Japan, was exceptionally popular in the late 80s and into 1990. But in 1991, everything changed. Group C's controversial 3.5-litre formula was introduced. The rules effectively brought engine parity between top-class Group C, C1, and Formula 1, requiring all cars to run naturally aspirated 3.5-litre power units or face demotion to C2 and the penalties that came along with it. Toyota didn't initially appear to be interested, as they dropped out of the championship in 1991, but for 1992, they returned with the blisteringly quick TS010, continuing their partnership with Tachi Oiwa Motorsport, or TOMS for short. Designed by legendary race car designer Tony Southgate, the TS010 would be Toyota's answer to the new rules. Powered by a 3.5-litre naturally aspirated V10, built around a carbon fibre monocoque chassis and stuck to the road by ground effect aero, and a wing visible from space, hopes were high that this car would be Toyota's ticket to the front of the field. Le Mans winner Andy Wallace was amongst the drivers tasked with testing the car, and his story of their time testing in Australia defined the TS010 tail as we know it today. The track they were testing at, Eastern Creek, had a bump midway through a very fast turn 1. Wallace recalls, quote, "I went through the corner and I felt this crack in my ribs and I thought, shit, that hurt." The second driver in was Hitoshi Agawa, and just towards the end of his stint, he did exactly the same thing and broke exactly the same 2 ribs that I did. Hence, the title of the rib breaker follows the TS010 wherever it goes. Andy Wallace's story about the TS010 testing program in Daily Sports Car is a fascinating read if you want more details. It's linked in the sources document below. As always, I highly recommend giving it a read. The upshot of the whole ordeal was, however, that Toyota had built a startlingly quick machine, which was well liked by the drivers in spite of their injuries, and with testing successful, it was time to send the TS010 into battle. Things could not have started any better. At the opening round of the World Sports Car Championship at Monza, the TS010 in the hands of Hitoshi Agawa and Jeff Lees finished first place. A momentous occasion, but one I now must sadly qualify. A win is a win, but Toyota's leading TS010 was also the only car to have a classified finish at the event, with the number 1 Peugeot 905 having crashed from first 2 laps earlier. Only the number 7 Toyota was able to overtake the crashed Peugeot, with the other 2 remaining cars too far behind to catch up and complete enough laps to qualify as finishers. To finish first you must finish. I know, but only Peugeot, Lola, Mazda and Toyota had C1 machines racing that day, totaling 6 cars, 5 of which technically failed to finish, including Toyota's second TS010. Nonetheless, Toyota had built one hell of a race car, and maybe this one could yield them that illustrious top spot at Le Mans. Race 2 was at Silverstone, and both TS010s failed to finish due to mechanical failures. The race went the way of the 905. Race 3 was that all-important 24 hours of Le Mans, the only race anyone really cared about at this point. In Group C1, the TS010 would have to face off against the 905 and Mazda's MXR-01, and despite Toyota's best efforts, they just couldn't quite make it happen. Of the 3 TS010s that started the race, just one of them finished, and it finished a tantalising but devastating 2nd place. It wasn't all disappointment for Toyota that day though, as their V8-powered 92CV claimed a class victory in C2, just 2 seconds behind Mazda's MXR01 racing in the higher class. Le Mans set the tone for the rest of Toyota's WSC season, always close, but never ahead of the all-conquering Peugeot 905. In the JSPC, Toyota didn't use the TS010 for most of the season, competing in what the FIA would have described as the C2 class with its 92CV. Their primary competition was Nissan and their R92CP, a car that proved Toyota's direct foil. On paper, they were very similar cars, but on race day, Nissan always seemed to have the better machine, relegating Toyota to a string of podiums and nearly podiums, win-free for the first 4 races. In races 5 and 6, they wheeled out their TS010 and won convincingly both times. But the wins were a little hollow, as their only equal competition in the higher class was the Mazda MX-R01, a car that had already proven itself to be unable to meaningfully compete even with some of the cars from the lower C2 class. The new for 91 Group C engine rules were a copy and paste job from F1's rulebook at the time, and the claim was the change would introduce new engine suppliers to F1 and allow F1 constructors to compete in the World Sports Car Championship more easily and cost effectively should they choose to do so. Others more cynically believe it was sabotage, ruining Group C to keep Formula 1 on top. Regardless of the intention, the results spoke for themselves, as the rule changes were effectively a death blow to Group C sports car racing due to the enormous increase in development costs associated with the new formula. 1992 was the final year of the World Sports Car Championship and the JSPC, as both folded under the weight of manufacturer exodus. For one more year, however, Group C1 was still the top class at Le Mans, with the race appearing to be effectively a straight rerun of the previous year in which Toyota had come so close to victory. Maybe the TS010 could bring home the grand prize for Toyota once and for all. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you already guessed, this dream didn't come to fruition for Toyota Team Toms, who suffered one final defeat at the hands of Peugeot, who locked out the top 3 finishing spots, leaving poor Toyota in 4th. Not even a podium for their effort. Group C's North American sister class, IMSA GTP, wasn't graced with the TS010's presence. Instead, longtime partner All-American Racers was running something very different and finding very different results. Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the next video diving into the story of the Eagle Mark III. In the meantime, I reckon you'll love this video about the Dauer 962. Thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.